Hello, hello, THL. Welcome to HearthCenter. It is the final episode of this season, probably of 2019 entirely, and we are blessed to have a fantastic guest this evening. The one, the only, Ridiculous Hat is here tonight. Hat, how are you tonight?
You just cut out there. I assume you asked how am I doing?
I did ask that. I apologize. I get excited sometimes. I take my finger off the push to talk too quick.
That'll happen. I'm feeling as blessed as a nightmare amalgam when Lightfang Enforcer is on the board to be here today on Hearth Center, which is, I think, one of the top 5 THL top shows.
That is unconfirmed, but very possible, and I understood that reference, so I appreciate that completely. Icon is also here. He is here typically with us, so we're happy to have him back. How are you doing tonight, buddy?
Vibing, bro. How about you?
Feeling good. Had a good workout today, so it's a good day. Lotus Knight is not here yet. He is a working man, and he will be here when he is done doing that. So he's going to go earn, and we'll let him jump in when he is ready, since he should be along shortly. But we've got a bunch of good topics to discuss tonight. As we mentioned, this is the end of the pro season, so we want to talk about pro awards. That will bookend the end of the show here. But we're going to start off with Challenger. We're going to talk about the top four, where we are now currently trying to decide the first Challenger winner of this new format. Duos, we're going to talk about the matches of the week. We have 5 awesome matches to discuss, and we're also going to talk about the top 5 Hearthstone stories of the season. And that's going to be something a little bit kind of mixing with THL as well as just Hearthstone in general. Just kind of the stories that were really important over the last few months in Hearthstone as a whole. So we've got a lot of content here to talk about. I think it's important to get started and get going here. Itachi, what happened to Legacy Awards? That is a good question. Legacy Awards will be revealed on Tavern Talk tomorrow. So if you are itching for that, you don't need to wait much longer. And then Hero Awards will be next week on Last Saloon, as normal, on Tuesday. So yes, we could not do the Legacy Awards next week, as understandably it is Thanksgiving, and thus everyone will be busy. So yeah, are you guys ready? Well, Icon disappeared briefly. So I'll ask Kat, are you ready to talk about the top 4 in Challenger?
I'm very ready.
Just
I'm so ready.
itching for it. Icon is back, so that's good. He is hopefully ready to talk about top 4 Challenger. So
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah. So let's take a look at who is playing. So in case you haven't been following, as we said, we're down to the semifinals now, which is Based Inc. versus Lotus Knight and Liquid Ox versus Nerdstrom. So Lotus, I really wish was here so that he could talk about his match a little bit. And from what I've seen, Based Inc. has been a very strong player, not only in THL, but it looks like he's been doing very well outside THL too. So might be a bit of a bit trouble for Lotus Knight. We can start with that match first, and maybe this is the time to predict Lotus Knight to lose without any sort of repercussions, Icon, if that's what you think is going to happen.
Sure. I mean, if you're giving me that invitation, I think that opponents that have less total data set available on them generally have a little bit of an advantage in a series where you're trying to predict the things that your opponent is going to bring. Somebody with a huge history of participation in THL like Lotus Knight is definitely going to have a little bit of more info on him as compared to somebody like Based Inc., who's relatively new to THL. And so I think if in a vacuum with 2 players who are theoretically on the same level, I would probably give it to the player who can hide a little bit more information on them or their tendencies.
That is true, but we do have 5 weeks now, or 4 weeks of regular season play, and then the playoffs. So there are some lineups available as far as Based Inc.'s history is concerned, at least in this format. Lotus, do you give any credence to him having more experience in THL, more experience in the closed list format than Based Inc. does?
I think that it's really difficult to say. I think that obviously open lists and closed lists have different challenges like with each one, and whereas like one of them is more about sort of what you can hide, the other one is more about I think what you can predict in terms of lineups, just because of the information available to you at submission time. So I think people that know how to play around that with what's given to them will be favored. It's very hard to say. I don't actually follow Challenger too closely, so I'd have to take a closer look. But in a vacuum, I would probably still give it to Base Ink narrowly.
Hat, what are you thinking here?
So there are a few factors going on, and for those that don't know Base Tank, he broke 6K MMR before the MMR update in Battleground, so that man knows his Nightmare Amalgams. So their lineups last week, both Based and Lotus, which they're not required to play this week, were different, I think, by about 6 cards over the 3 deck lists. Very, very similar lineups. The Priest was off by like a single Silence versus a Topsy-Turvy. Lotus's Rogue was a little weird. It had a Cable Rat, a Siamat, and a Heist Baron Togwaggle. And the Shaman had a Stormbringer, whereas Based Ink went with a Novice Engineer. Other than that, very small differences here. I'm inclined to lean towards Based Ink as the 5-0 player versus the 4-1, and he was 10-3 in games versus 9-5 over the course of the season. Small sample size. The most important factor here, in the final week of regular playoffs, Lotus Knight submitted decks and Based Ink spammed this Clover to roll them over and has not lost yet. So I'm going to go with the power of the rollover. Those conserved neurons during week 4 that were not spent on thinking about decks are going to come in handy in the top 4.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting perspective, and I will say too, Lotus has been very preoccupied with a lot of the duos, setting up that bracket and making sure that everybody's on the same page for that. So maybe a little bit of extra distraction outside of his normal preparation period, and we see he's at work right now. So maybe he's not quite as focused as you would want to be for a playoff match, and that will work in Base Ink's favor. So time will tell on that. Maybe when Lotus comes on, he can let us know when that match is going to be played, so we can keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, we can go ahead and talk about our second semifinals match, which would be Liquid Ox versus Nerdstrom. And now, Icon, I know you are very familiar with Liquid Ox, both as a person and a player.
Sometimes a little bit more familiar than I would like, depending on how he plays.
Perhaps an understatement, I suppose. And I've seen Nerdstrom around, but I do not know much about Nerdstrom myself. So, Icon, I'll let you lead on this one here. What is your initial impressions of this matchup?
Nerdstrom is going to win, and I will tell you exactly why. Because wait, am I allowed to say how the previous match turned out in terms of like administration stuff?
Do you mean like on a per game basis, or?
So Liquid Ox is in the top 4 based on a rules violation in the top 8.
Oh yeah.
He lost and made it in. So I mean, I love Ox, but like, bro, you didn't even win to get here. Like, I love you, but you didn't win to get here. Nerdstrom literally did the thing that gets him there. So, I don't know, dude.
Sometimes you just get to the podium any way you can, even if it's a technicality. And being alive is better than being knocked out. So, here we are.
Yeah, I mean, that said, I think that... I will say this about Ox in literally every match he plays. His level of success is going to depend on the motivation that he puts into it. When he is like on and actually cares, I've seen him do amazing things in pro. He's like one of my best pro players week to week when he like actually tries. When he doesn't have motivation, he can get swept by like a 5 seed. I don't really he sort of comes and goes, I think if you get him to care, he's going to go all out, but whether he actually cares or not is going to be a really big question mark to me. And when you're looking at somebody like Nerdstrom, who's obviously performed very consistently over the season, I think that in a vacuum, I think I would lean slightly towards Nerdstrom.
So, Hat, do you think that Liquid Ox is going to win here, or does he get flattened like the Earth?
So I think this is actually a really close matchup between two very strong competitors. Liquid Ox has won more games, but Nerdstrom has been eliminated fewer times. So I'm not sure which way to lean there. I'm gonna bet Ox. I'm gonna bet Ox.
So as far as you're thinking, the finals is going to be Ox versus Based. And Icon, you think it's Nerdstrom versus Base, so no one's giving Lotus a shot here. So since we're not going to have a show next week that will follow up on this, presuming your predictions are correct, who do you think, I'll start with Hat, who do you think is going to take it all?
Based has not lost a match. I need a reason to believe that he will. And for a person to be grinding that much BG and still be good at manual battler Hearthstone, I think indicates there's a level of engagement with the game as of right now that shouldn't really be bet against. I'm going based.
And Icon, how about you?
I am actually going to vote for based as well in Team Manual Battler Legends.
The you guys are really loving the BG references, and we are going to get to that later, I promise. But yeah, Base does seem like the favorite right now out of the four, and it's hard to bet against him at the moment. So I will agree. I think the Base will be our challenger champion, but we will have to wait till next week to see how that plays out. And with that being said, we will move on here, and I was hoping that Lotus would be present by now. He is not ready yet, unfortunately. So we will talk about the duos matches of the week. The duos tournament is just starting. I believe as of last night there was one match played, and we talked about it a little bit on Last Loon Standing. So if you do want to watch us talk about all of the matches, you can go and check that out. I was on with Lefty as we were 4 matches played now apparently. So including 2 of the ones on your list. Fun. So yeah, didn't check. Oh, Lotus is here now. So I'm gonna pop the duos matches up on the screen. We're gonna get him in the call, and we're gonna talk about some matches here. So we can talk about the ones that have been played as well, because that's still interesting to recap what's happening. So let's pull up the 5 most interesting matches as picked by our duos expert. That's Lotus, of course. And as you will see popping up on the screen here, we have Myetodon and Papa Jason versus Lotus Knight and Skittles. Avi and A2 Battleship versus Bill and Sema Comp H. Ron Mexico and Sage versus Pasca and Disco. Icon and Snake versus Dano and Enthralamund. And Hockey and Markshire versus Alien Santa and Brick. So, Icon... first of all, which of the matches here have been played so far? I think, Hat, you saw which ones have been played.
So of the 5, match number 2, which is Avi and A2 Battleship versus Bill and C-Mac has been played, and Ron Mexico and Sage versus Pasca and Disco has been played.
All right, well, let's start with the Avi and Battleship versus Bill and C-Mac, since that's the first one listed here that has been played. What was the result?
Team AA beat Team BC.
Which Avi has a fantastic team name. Avi's team name is Bruh Momentum. So
yes,
Bruh Momentum beat Bill and C-Mac.
I forgot that they named their teams.
Yes, some people did. And Avi and A2 are both like not only TESPA stars, but just really good players that happen to be young. Avi just punched his ticket to Arlington with his 5th top 8, and A2 as well, I believe, is some ridiculous record in qualifiers. It's a very high-powered team. No disrespect to Bill or C-Mac. They're both strong players, and I mean, C-Mac is also the grinder to end all grinders. But just the quality of play and current connection with the game between Avi and A2 is going to be really hard for a lot of people to beat. I will also point out that Bill and C-Mac's team is Dr. Bill Nye Mad Genius. Is the name of that team.
Yeah, I was going to say something along those lines involving Bill and being a mad genius.
I will say I'm going to take a little bit of responsibility for Avi making his 5th top 8. The story I told last night on Saloon was we played in his final qualifier run up to the top 8. It may have been only in the second round, but we played, and I had a chance at him. And, I felt like I knew he was close, and I felt maybe I should take it easy on him. And he didn't take it easy on me, and I lost 2-1. So congrats to Avi, and congrats for them to advance out of the first round. It is double elimination, so that does not mean Bill and C-Mac are eliminated, and they will drop down to the lower half of the bracket. So Ron Mexico and Sage versus Pasca and Disco. What happened in that match?
That match,
I believe Pasca and Disco won.
Yes, that is true. Is that true? I'm confirming.
Yeah, because I just know because Sage.
No, that is not true. Ron Mexico and Sage won.
Wait, what? Oh, okay. I thought Sage meant that he was going to be in the losers bracket when he said that thing out, but okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, Ron and Sage won, which is good because I don't know how much Hearthstone Sage plays these days.
He does
But I
not. He
mean,
plays none.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was trying to be nice.
It's Ron.
So Ron and Sage, which is Ron, like Sage. Okay, Sage's moral support. I want to point out, Sage's moral support has claimed 3 championship trophies in 5 seasons. So let's not underestimate
Yeah.
that as a factor,
Yeah.
because so far it is like Hall of Fame moral
Yeah.
support that shows
Yeah.
up on the scoreboard. We need to make sure we're aware of that.
Yeah.
Paskin Disco, also an excellent team, excellent squad. That match went to 5 games. Looks super close and really interesting. And I have no doubt that we'll be hearing more of them in week number 2 when they play against Quaz and Ted. And meanwhile, Ron, Mexico, and Sage will be playing against Typhoon and Clarity, who, Icon, I believe you know a little bit about Clarity.
Yeah, dude, he's a pro COD player, and he's really awesome. Itachi speaks very highly of him. Itachi had a private call with him for about 30 minutes before he joined the community, and he was very, very good back in CWL, and he should, if he brings that level of like discipline to a competitive card game, he should be really killer. He's also very close to hitting Legend right now, which is generally how a lot of people in THL blow up within the competitive space, so...
Yeah, it's always nice to have an influx of talent, regardless of what PR they'll be coming in at. But it does look like he will be, if he chooses to play series that are not that are PR based, he's going to be pretty high up there, at least a 2 seed, if not a 1 seed. So it'll be interesting to see if he catches on. I'm sure he will catch on with any team that is looking for a high seed in the next upcoming THL seasons. So before we move on to the matches that have yet to be played, let us welcome Lotus Knight into the fold. Lotus, how are you this evening?
Hey everyone, I'm doing well. Can't complain. Sorry, I was late because of a work call, but I'm here now and very excited for our show.
We just to catch you up, we have talked about Challenger already, so we'll circle back to that and let you have your say. But right now we're talking about your baby. We're talking about duos, and we've gone over the 2 matches of the 5 that have happened so far this week, and we want to talk now about the upcoming matches. Which the first one is yours and Skittles versus Myandon and Papa Jason. So how are you feeling about that match so far? Any first round jitters, or are you thinking that you got this thing locked up?
So first, I'm going to say this match kind of proves that I did not stack the bracket in any way. This is probably the worst match I could have chosen because they're an insane team and we're both afraid but just excited to play against each other. But that being said, I think we're going to do a good job. We're going to do the prep. We're going to work hard. We both have been playing a lot, and I think the other side as well. So I can only expect it to be a solid match.
I'm sure it will be. I definitely see Myandon grinding every day. He's pretty decently high legend as far as I last saw, maybe in the 300s. So he's out there playing, he's prepping, and he'll be ready to go. Hat, what do you think about this matchup?
So, do you all know who Papa Jason is?
I've heard tales.
Oh, yes.
Okay, so super nice guy that is somehow from Philadelphia. Those 2 things don't often dovetail the way they do, but Papa Jason is like a ray of sunshine and is so chill and just a generally really positive person that's also really, really good at Hearthstone. Like, has hit rank 1 legend before, was in contention for Grandmasters at Bucharest. He was, I think, 2nd or 3rd on the money list for NA. Now, granted, that was like $3,500 because the top 2 money winners in NA were Dog and Gallon, and one was a GM and then one is a GM. But he was right up there with the very best in the Americas region, and he's a really, really strong player. And their team name is Papa Don's, which I think works on multiple levels. And I find very amusing. The team name might be the best part of their comp, and they have a very strong comp. Now, with that being said, Lotus and Skittles might be the most relentlessly positive duo possible this side of Saku and Jim Philos. And I don't want to root against either team. I don't know who to root for because I love Papa Jason, but I also love a good underdog story with some positive people that are highly engaged with THL. I just know it's going to be a good match.
I agree. Definitely going to be an interesting match, and that's why we wanted to obviously just go 2-2, says Diamond. That's why we wanted to lead off with it to discuss. Icon, maybe you have a more concrete opinion than we do on this match.
Probably not, actually. I think that it's definitely, well, actually, yeah, probably. I think that it's obviously a shame that these players have to go against each other so early, because they're obviously some of the highest level players here. And I think that overall, obviously one team is a little bit stronger on paper, but I think that both of them bring a very, very, very high level of competition to this, and whichever way this goes, it should be very close. That said, I would slightly give an edge to the former pair as a duo.
And again, it should be mentioned that one loss does not knock you out of the tournament. It is double elimination. So the initial tough matchup does not mean it's over. And I think the good news might be the team that does not win might have an easier time coming out of the lower bracket, at least in the initial going. So while they get their legs as a duo, that might be the blessing in disguise. But we'll have to see about that. And we want to talk about your match, Icon. That's next. You and Snake versus Dano and Enthralamond. And now I know Dano. I don't know Enthralamond. I know you and Snake. So should you be considered the favorites here, Icon?
Yes, I just flat out think so. And Thralamond was quoted to me as being around like 450 to like 470 PR, which I think is definitely very respectable. That said, I think Snake and I have one of the strongest amount of like chemistry possible. I think that we've put in a lot of hours on this specifically. Overall, I just think that we have some like really off meta things that I don't think anybody's going to expect, and we've spent like multiple like 3-hour sessions sort of perfecting those. So I think that anybody who is trying to predict us in closed lists will be very surprised.
All right. So
we're really good.
Unpredictable. You might actually be predictable in the end.
Also, my name is the only one that's not capitalized out of literally every single one of these 16 names.
This was a copy paste.
I don't know if that's intentional, but
yeah. That was not intentional. I assure you, I was not trying to insult you in any way.
Also, Dano has a kid and therefore is a boomer, and Snake and I our team name is actually OK Boomer, and therefore we are going to vibe check the boomers, and I think that this result's going to be very clear.
I understood maybe a third of that sentence.
Yeah, those are words that do not mean much to me as a mid-30-year-old parent. Vibe check.
I don't know what they're saying. I don't Snapchat any Instagrams up here, so like whatever the kids are doing these days, I'm not familiar. Does anyone actually still use Snapchat, by the way?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's the different platforms are used for different things, definitely. I think Snapchat is generally considered to be much more casual, whereas Instagram is turning more business focused these days because of the sort of rise of influencers and social media personalities and sort of things like that. But yeah, it's definitely still used.
Hat.
Cool.
I don't want to distract from the learning that's going on now, but what do you think about our match here? How do you think this is going to shake out?
I was mostly asking to try and be polite. I don't actually give a shit about Snapchat. So Dano and Enthralamond's team. Dano lives in the United States. Enthralamond lives in Canada. And Dano's team name is Drive South to Canada because that's what he has to do from where he is in
Detroit?
United States. I think. Yes. I believe Upper Peninsula.
Okay. Even further.
So
another solution is to just drive out of Detroit and north to Canada because it is Detroit, but like...
Well, no,
Detroit has Detroit-style pizza.
Is that good?
Yes, it's like the best Pizza Hut pizza you ever had.
Oh,
it's like a gourmet, buttery Pizza Hut pizza. It is good.
What do you put in it, like bankruptcy or... Oh, okay.
So how does the world look from your California bubble over there?
I don't know, dude. Being the 5th largest economy in the world, like aside from like major world powers, is pretty nice. I gotta say that.
Yeah, must be nice in your bubble of privilege. Anyways, so the point here is Dano and Enthralamond. I've known Enthralamond for years, and he actually took a year off from the game and then came back to like be top 100 legend. He's a very strong player, and if you want to talk about engagement with THL and competitive Hearthstone being on the rise for a single person, it is Dano, and it is not close. Going from 5 seed to 2 seed in a minute, like in actually
8-1
1 minute
or something like that. Yeah,
something crazy like that. 7-1 in the regular season, and just like you don't get momentum is kind of not a thing, but it's kind of a thing. And if it is a thing, then Dano has it. And Thrallamund, great player, also very much in tune with that. And Dan and Thrallamund have known each other for years and years and years and have excellent chemistry as well. They've known each other for like as long as Icon and Snake have been alive. So like, it's hard to bet against that. But at the same time, Icon and Snake, like Icon wins trophies, and Snake, like I think there's going to be more unpredictability from that matchup. But unpredictability isn't always good. I don't know.
Snake has the piloting ability, right? Like, I'm not going to pretend like I'm the master pilot in any of this, but I have.
Oh yeah, I agree that you're the worst player.
Hearthstone. Yeah, of course. I've been playing more Hearthstone than I have in the last like couple days than I did in like the last month. So like, and that was when I was playing in THL. So like, I don't know, it could happen.
But there's also the value of moral support because, as we've proven, Sage does not have to play Hearthstone to win all the trophies. So, like, I'm going to vote Dano and Thrallamund because you voted for yourself, and so I'm going to vote against you. But I don't know who will actually win. I just want to make sure I vote against you and document it.
Awesome.
Then I think we should let Lotus break the tie.
Sorry, this is a very hard match for me. I feel like, yeah, Dano and Thrallamund are great players. Dano had the crazy season. I think it's going to end up coming down to whomever better understands the other classes and lineups. And it's really hard to go against Snake for that. So I think I have to give it to Snake and Icon most likely.
All right. Well, let's talk about what might be, I personally feel, the most lopsided of the 5 matchups here. Hockey and Markshire versus Alien Santa and Brick. We've been talking. Markshire, love the guy. He hasn't played a whole lot of Hearthstone this expansion, maybe none. And Hockey's just getting back into it in this last season of Hero Series. So I've got to imagine that Alien Santa, our resident LHS ace, and Brick have to be favored here. Would you agree with that, Hat?
I mean, okay, if this were a matchup, if this were a best of 5 pun matchup, Alien Santa sweeps on his own.
Hands down.
And I want to make sure that's clear. It's not even close. But we're playing Hearthstone, not puns. Hockey and Markshire, like that is the Tespa duo to end all Tespa duos this side of Avi A2. Like I can't bet against them. I can't do that. And betting against those two guys would be a vote of no confidence. I'm saying it. I'm not going to do that. I'm not willing to do that.
Lotus, how do you feel about this match?
I think this is another great match. This match, we're trying to get it on stream for Saturday Schoolstone because they actually said they want to do it, and I think we'll have them to be confirmed. But I think this is another one that's just a super tight match. This could be a semifinals or something, and no one would really be surprised.
All right, and Icon, last thoughts on this before we move on?
I'm on Apple earbuds right now, so I apologize for the awful mic quality. So Hockey and Markshire is probably one of the most fun duos I have seen so far. They are going to enjoy themselves immensely. However, Alien Santa is 700 legend right now and an extremely talented LHS player. And currently in the LHS space, Hockey and Mason are who mega lulls. So I don't want to bet against Alien. I think I would favor Alien in this scenario.
All right. Well, it should be a good week of action here in the first round of the duos tournament. So definitely keep tuned to THL. Even though obviously we'll be outside of the standard THL series seasons, there's still plenty of action going on and plenty of stuff to pay attention to if you are just a casual observer of the action. So let's move into our main event tonight, which is going to be I'm sorry, I'm currently getting cat attacked right now while I'm trying to stream up, which is an extra layer of fun. We're going to talk about the top 5 Hearthstone stories of the season. Now, these are stories that not only are THL relevant, but just relevant to Hearthstone in general. And we kind of had a discussion, came down to narrowed it down to 5 that we wanted to talk about tonight. So there are, a lot of good and a lot of bad things that happened in the past few months. So this is going to kind of encompass everything. So before we get to the top 5, there were a couple stories that we talked about here on HearthCenter earlier this season. We don't necessarily want to rehash them entirely, just because we already did go pretty deep into those discussion topics earlier this season. So I would encourage you guys to check out the YouTube channel and go look at our VODs there, because we went ahead and talked about these 2 topics, which I will pop up here on the screen first. It's Blitzchung and Psycho. Or Seiko? Is it Seiko or Psycho?
I say Seiko because Psycho is confusing, and Seiko, unless people think you're talking about a watch brand, they're probably going to know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. So these 2 stories, of course, Blitzchung was the DQ from Grandmasters, the removal due to the protest on stream, and Seiko was the TFT qualifying tournament that he played while on stream at Grandmasters. These are both Grandmasters related stories. They're absolutely 2 of the biggest stories of the entire Hearthstone season, and they certainly are worth the discussion. But I'll let you guys have a quick moment here before we move on. Icon, I know we already talked about this, but any new information or new thoughts since we last discussed these topics?
I will say that Seiko did say at DreamHack that it was Psycho. He just likes the different pronunciation of it. I think he has one of the coolest, edgiest names in all of Hearthstone. I think overall the Grandmaster system is just a kind of, for lack of a better word, quirkily organized sort of league that could potentially use a little bit more sort of discipline and codification in how it handles incidents, because a number of sort of issues have arisen around the adminship and sort of general day-to-day operation of the league, despite Blizzard wanting it to be sort of their flagship for competitive Hearthstone. So I think them focusing on that going forward would be great.
Absolutely. You weren't here for either of these discussions, of course, but I know that you have your own podcast as well. You're welcome to plug it if you'd like. And I know you've discussed these topics as well. But do you have any more? Anything changed for you over the last month or so, especially with BlizzCon happening? There was a lot of talk about the Blitzchung episode in particular.
This is a topic that needs more time than we can give it in a retrospective. Suffice to say, there has not been a higher profile moment for video games in quite some time. And while I wish it was under better circumstances, it kind of illustrates the reach that a platform like Twitch can have. Beyond that, it's human rights stuff is very, very complicated, and a bunch of people that do video games and don't know about human rights stuff that suddenly have to learn all about it and then comment on it immediately. It's not going to be a perfect discussion, and I hope nobody feels guilty for continuing to play Blizzard games. And also, I hope nobody says, well, we can't change anything, so I'm not going to bother learning about the large amount of human rights issues in the world and or doing something about them. And you don't have to choose between those 2 things. You can both play Hearthstone and support human rights and fight their abuses, and you can do both things, and I strongly recommend it. So as Seiko's going, play 1 game at a time, not 2. Don't do 2. 2 is too many. Just do 1. And Grandmasters, Icon was nice. Grandmasters is a cataclysmic failure that is a result of massive intentional budget cuts to the esports portion of Blizzard's business model, because esports doesn't make money. And
wait, can I say that? Oh my god, that was going to be I just thought we had to be diplomatic. No, Grandmasters is a fucking dumpster fire, dude. It's
okay. I didn't swear.
I'm going to hold you guys on this for just a second, because we are going to talk about that in a little bit, and I definitely want to dig into that. So don't blow all of your opinions on the preamble here while we're just getting into it. But Lotus Knight, I'll let you have your last say before we move into our actual top 5 stories that we want to discuss.
So I don't think I have too much to add to what Icon and Hat said. Most of what I'll add is just There's a difference when you're playing in a small scenario or just playing at home versus when you're playing a GM match. Just be responsible. If it's something that big, play only one game at a time.
Yeah, everyone thinks that they are the best multitasker in the world, and it has been proven time and time again that it is nearly impossible to function at 100% capacity in two things at once rather than doing just one thing. So, do you really want to do two things at 80%, even if you're capable of 80%, when you can do one of those things at 100%, especially when you're playing in a tournament or a league in this case, as far as Seiko is concerned? That is, you're going to need to bring your best. You're playing the best. You need to bring your best in order to beat the best, and just not doing that is a give up. So that's how I feel about it. So we've like I said, we touched on those. Feel free to go back and watch the VODs if you want a bit more in-depth discussion. And there are plenty of places out there in the in the Hearthstone universe that have been discussing these ad nauseum for the last few weeks, or actually months at this point, since time flies. But the number one thing we want to talk about first will not shock anybody. Our number one story of this last few months has been Shaman meta oppression and how it relates to design philosophy in Hearthstone and in games in general. No, Itachi, me trying to play versus Donde and also work, that is not the top story. Or you were talking about multitasking. Yeah, you shouldn't do that either. But I appreciate you. So, Thrall, he is everywhere. I think 40% was what I saw, the last number as far as a ladder representation is concerned. And it's just, it's hard out there for any class that can't beat Shaman, which is 8 of them for the most part. So this is the design philosophy aspect comes into Blizzard's particular decision to start re-infusing cards that have been moved out of Standard back into Standard, and how they now interplay with the cards that they have been now releasing this year. So I'm sure they did their testing. They always do testing, but should they have known that Evolve was just going to break things as much as it has? Lotus, you're a big meta guy. I know you have opinions on this. What are your thoughts on where Shaman stands right now in relation to not only THL but just Hearthstone as a whole?
So I think the first thing, before even these cards came in, there was already one interaction which was super annoying to deal with for so many decks, which was Mogu Evolve. And I dread
Mogu
Mogu.
Mutate?
I think it's one of the sorry, Mogu Mutate. Mogu Evolve being the new iteration on it. But yeah, Mogu is a really poorly designed card in my opinion, because it just comes on the board, trades with something, and then becomes something enormous that you can't kill on turn 4. And so once that, basically with Evolve, that became super consistent. And you even have that with Desert Hair, which also closes games. So I think that just took a deck that was already starting to get dangerous and just blew it out of proportion. And Aggro Shaman was just a kind of the next step on what was going on.
Yeah, it's definitely something that was already good before Evolve got reinserted back into Standard. Itachi says, I don't think Mogu is poorly designed. I don't know if it's necessarily poorly designed, but we have seen cards that cheat the curve be consistently broken. Corridor Creeper, anyone, before it got nerfed? 7 mana 5/5 that you typically could play almost on turn 2 or 3 pretty much 100% of the time or close to it, especially in Paladin where you just generate dudes constantly. That's what you do. Icon, how about you? How do you feel about this topic here?
So I think that the comparison to Quarter Creeper is actually particularly apt, because I think that Blizzard saw a mechanic in Quarter Creeper that was inherently very, very, very broken. That is mana cheat that works for both sides of the battlefield, right? So you've not just got your minions dying; it's all minions dying that sort of affects that. And when everybody's trading in a game of Hearthstone and playing like minion-based interactions in combat, your stuff is going to get reduced really, really quickly. And I think Mogu is exactly the same in that it's a high cost minion that becomes very, very low cost when you do basic things in Hearthstone that are extremely achievable. And I think that Blizzard's willingness to re-enter that after Corridor Creeper is really astonishing to me. Also, a note that 40% meta representation of a class is about the level that we were at during the Karazhan mid-range shaman days with Spirit Claws, Pre-nerf, Tuskar Totemic, and Totem Golem. So I think that the fact that these cards are going to be in standard for less time than that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be just as concerned, because it's obviously extremely oppressive and definitely something to take a look at.
Definitely agree. And you mentioned, Shaman had a high representation during that meta previously as well. And I think some of that lends to the fact that Shaman's class identity has a little bit of that variance factor to it at the evolve. You've got the spells that can high roll, like Lightning Storm, where you're either 2 or 3 damage. So, like, there are times where when you take some of the randomness factor out of Shaman, you can find that they just have consistently stronger cards that when you take away the drawback, it's just a really good class. So I think that's a big factor here. And Hat, I see that you are you're espousing your opinions in chat right now, and I want you to tell us how you feel, out loud here while we have the platform. So if we can break you away from chat for a few moments while the shaman are multiplying on screen just like they are on your ladder experience as well. So let's
Okay.
let's try to talk
Hold
about that
up.
for a little bit.
Who in this call has played ladder recently enough to know how much shaman there is?
Yes, I played with Snake at like 5 to 3 for like 3 hours a day for like the last week.
My ladder experience
was
has been basically me at the gym on the bike.
Yeah, I actually played a lot recently, so yes.
Okay.
It's insane. It's actually disgusting. Like you can just be like, well, I guess the next match is going to be a shaman. Next match is going to be a shaman. It's very predictable.
Lois, how much ladder have you played?
I've been playing a few hours every day. Played a lot last night. I was just practicing late. And it's been basically every second or third match is a shaman.
Yeah, so like obviously shaman is overrepresented. Part of that is that shaman is easy, right? It's the meta is not solved, but it's solved enough, especially when they announce that Evolve is going to be in standard and they say it's going to be here for exactly 2 months and then it's going to go away, and we release this brand new game mode. People just aren't going to iterate as much and pay as much attention. Now, as far as how they're designing standard, I think that they are doing an excellent job this year. They have made mistakes repeatedly. First of all, I'm convinced Evil Miscreant being a 1/5 was literally a typo. I see no other reason why that should have happened. Someone hit a 5 instead of a 4, and they left the card that way for a month. And they're like, oh, we should fix this. And also at the same time, get rid of this 0 mana draw 3 cards that Rogue has. But they didn't make any hero cards, and the hero card they have previewed for Descent of Dragons is kind of a questionable application, which I think is a good thing. They nerfed pretty fast. It was twice during the last meta and once during this meta, along with buffs last meta, which some of them worked out, some of them were pretty bad. They reverted some buffs. And then new cards this meta. I'm disappointed that they didn't get rid of Evolve faster. I don't think that would solve any of the issues with this meta. It would just shift them, because N'Zoth is still like a card that makes other strategies not viable, along with other things that play with it. I don't think the wild cards were a good idea. I like that they're willing to try things, but I think the way that they're going about trying things might need to be adjusted, might need to be changed a bit, because adding Lunas didn't work out super well, and adding Evolve didn't work out super well. But I mean, if we think back to Hearthstone's history, how long did we have that mid-range shaman meta? 6 months.
Very true.
We had Spirit Claws unnerfed for 6 months, which is insane to me. Like, absolutely bonkers, insane, ridiculous. We had 4 mana Call to Arms for 2 expansions for about 6 months. We had a lot of these really, really busted metas, and I'm not trying to, like, say back in my day things were worse and we just accepted it, because I don't want to say that. We stopped playing Hearthstone. We didn't have better options, so we just took some time off. We couldn't go play Runeterra or MTG Arena or BG or whatever. But as it stands right now, I'm not thrilled with this meta. We have other options. It's going to go away in a minute. I wish it was better. I've seen a lot worse. And I don't love that they made a new corridor creeper, like 0 mana minions that have a base cost of more than 0 probably should stop happening, because I can't think of time that they did it and it was a good idea. Mountain Giant, if you may recall, was kind of a thing with that Conjurer's Calling card, which was kind of a big deal. Sea Giant also abused by the same Conjurer's Calling card. Molten Giant Hall of Famed. Just, it seems like this is a design space that's pretty tricky to get right and pretty easy to get wrong. But all things considered, this is the 4th month of the Saviors of Uldum meta. There has never been a month 4 meta that has been interesting without external changes. I wish they kicked Evolve out, but I think the meta we'd be left behind with wouldn't be a lot better, because I expect to see a lot of N'Zoths, and Kartut Defender is not a better thing to see. At least the Shaman games are over faster. I don't know. I think that this meta is poor and kind of goofy, but not like death for the game, especially because they made this awesome new game mode. And when Descent of Dragons comes out, it's going to feel like a rotation, and that's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to the turnover, when the new set comes out, and then of course when these cards go away. And to your point earlier, this is actually, for me on a personal level, the only 2 months since the beginning of 2017 that I have not hit Legend. I've just not felt the need to wade through.
Whoa, you missed it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 30 months in a row I hit Legend, then the last 2 months I was just like, the miasma that is the Shaman on ladder right now, I do not feel like I need to prove anything and get through that just to bang my head against the wall. So, Itachi, obviously he disagrees with the Mogu to Creeper comparison, but I mean, I definitely see the main thing to me that the comparison works is that you've got the reduction in cost and not necessarily the stats or anything, but it's Mana cheat has been a problem in Hearthstone. The Thaurissan enabled broken things before Thaurissan was rotated out. So Big Priest was a problem because you took cards that were 7, 8, 9, 10 cost and popped them on the board on turn 4 or even turn 3 if you had coins. So it's a common historical mistake that it seems like the developers make over and over again, that it causes a lot of headaches. And they just
and Luna's Pocket Galaxy was a problem this year.
Correct.
Like months before, and was definitely also not great for the game. I do think that the Mogu Mutate pattern is closer to the Barnes on 4 pattern. It's not quite as good. You do need some minion presence, and there is some relevance there. But also, Standard has been powered down a lot this year versus, say, 2 years ago when the year of the Mammoth broken insane cards were in Standard. Standard's worse now. So an effect like this just matters that much more because other decks can't necessarily keep up in the same way. It's interesting, and it wasn't what I was expecting for them to do. I didn't expect them to have Evolve be a core mechanic to Shaman and then make a card that has a base cost of 7 and a casting cost of 0. It seemed like something they shouldn't be doing. But they're taking risks, and boring cards are way worse than good cards, because I would take this meta over Rastakan's Rumble anytime, where a new expansion came out and they had to nerf iconic Druid cards within 4 days because the expansion did not matter.
It's a good point. And like you said, it's always good that they're trying to innovate and try different things, which actually is bringing us to our second topic of the evening, which is, I think, a much happier topic than what we were just discussing, and that's the release of Battlegrounds and the rise of the digital competitors in that space. Particularly in this case, Blizzard got there a little bit later than some of the other auto battlers, but I will say I'm pleasantly surprised. I was not too high on this when it was announced, and I think it's actually pretty fun. I'm by no means as experienced as some of you. I know, Hat, you got to play it a little bit earlier than others, but I'll let you guys take it away. I know that you were pretty high on it, Hat, so I'll lead with you. What are your thoughts on Battleground in its initial phases? Where do you think we go from here? And how do you think it stacks up to the others in the genre?
It is the best auto battler because it is the most accessible. I believe there is more depth to TFT, and I believe that Underlords is effectively dead at this time. Despite being a big fan of that game, it's just not a thing anymore because Valve keeps iterating it poorly and also has no marketing or presence. But Battlegrounds is the only one of these games that is under 40 minutes per game, and that's a big deal. And you can play it on mobile, and it's a lot simpler and more streamlined. I'm a big fan of taking out mechanics that add artificial complexity. I played Magic the Gathering for, I started playing Magic the Gathering at summer camp in the mid 90s. It's unclear if Icon was alive at the time. And Hearthstone versus Magic, Magic has more things to do in a game, more knobs to turn, more like lands to tap, and micro decisions. They add artificial complexity. They don't add strategic complexity. And so removing like a lot of the econ elements from TFT and Underlords and Auto Chess and all that, and making Battlegrounds more streamlined, just about what you do versus what you don't do, I think is a step in the right direction. And BG is just fun. I mean, you've all played it. It's hard to explain the dopamine hit you get every turn of every game of just, what's in the box? What do I get next? What does this reroll get me? What does this triple get me? My golden card, how does the attack turn out? It's really engaging in a way that's hard to market. And every single person that I've talked to about it has basically said, it's more fun than I thought it would be. That's the first sentence every single person says after they play it, which speaks to how hard it is to market this game and how easy it is to love the mode. So I think it's going to be around for a while, and I have very good information that the developers cannot stop playing it. And when the devs can't stop playing the game that they make, that's a really good sign of both engagement, short-term and long, and also of more features coming.
So what you're saying is they've stopped playing Wild and Arena.
When did they play those?
It's unclear.
And also, by the way, you were talking about cost reduction being a problem. Have you heard of the card Snip Snap?
Oh
Yeah,
yes,
that
we
card
didn't
is-
even talk about the busted Wild meta.
I mean, not even busted. Zeddy said there are, I think it was Zeddy or maybe Reno Jackson, there are under 100 North American Wild Legends right now.
Yeah, I think I
On
saw
the
on Reddit
20th.
it was like 11 minutes to queue if you're at Legend.
I mean, that's half a BG.
Yeah, it's crazy. Or if you're bad at BG, a whole BG.
But have you considered Get Good?
I have considered it. I will take it under advisement. Icon.
Weren't you like crazy high on the leaderboard set?
I was on day one, and then good people started playing, and I'm like, oh, I'll see you later.
Okay.
Icon, you
I'm
been
at
playing
like
much BG?
5,600.
Yeah, actually, I played a decent amount of it. I don't really.
It's good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really tend to play any games that don't involve like shooting people in the face. But Battlegrounds, I think, has been a huge success. I think that in streamlining, taking any core gameplay experience that people enjoy, and then taking sort of that like storyline and that sort of experience and putting it into a really like compact, easy to palate shell is going to be really, really, really effective from a business perspective. And because it's within the Hearthstone game client, it doesn't matter that people aren't playing Standard or Wild because they're still within Hearthstone. They're still playing the game of Hearthstone, and I think that Blizzard has been very successful in keeping them there. I kind of suck at the game, but it's definitely really, really fun. There's a very familiar feel to it, and that like it's conceptually very simple, but the nuances of it can be very complex if you'd like them to be. And there's a lot of depth in that, and I think that Blizzard, while they fail in some regards with how they choose their game philosophy, they have very, very, very much succeeded in the realm of taking a core gameplay concept and then simplifying it and streamlining it. And I think the Battlegrounds does exactly that.
And I think you bring up a very interesting point too, with it being obviously baked into the Hearthstone client. You're already in it. If you're going to play Hearthstone, now it's just another option within Hearthstone. And Blizzard does have a history of taking other genres or games, and integrating them into their portfolio in a simplified way. Like Heroes of the Storm, for example, RIP Heroes of the Storm, and that was not as successful. It was certainly not as successful at a competitive level, and
maybe hits and misses with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Blizzard sits there and says to themselves, "We're Blizzard. People will play our game because they love our universe. They love what we bring to the table, and they will migrate from League of Legends. They will migrate from Dota," and that just did not happen. So to see the initial success with Battlegrounds is encouraging, at least I'm sure for them. And I think it being based in the client itself is actually a very big help to them, because you're already playing Hearthstone. You don't have to go download another game or open another program or anything like that. You're already there. So just try it out. You've already got it built into the game you already play. So Lotus, how about you? Have you been playing Battlegrounds much lately?
I've been playing a ton of Battlegrounds. It's so addicting. Oh, that thing is just meth. I would say the game is really fun, super unbalanced. I don't think they've figured balance out. Some heroes are just way better than the others. Some tribes are way better than the others. That being said, it's just really interesting to see what happens, to think about all the possibilities. And I feel like even if I do Beasts a lot, even if I do Mechs a lot, Murlocs a lot, every time it's a little bit different. The lineup is different. The strategy I use to build it is different. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's nice to, obviously there's enough heroes that every grouping of 8 is probably going to be somewhat unique. And you don't play everybody in the same order. There's like randomness to it, so you're not going to get the same game every single time, which I think is refreshing in a meta where a lot of the time we are getting the same thing almost every single time when we queue, as you mentioned with shamans. So it is cool. It's definitely a nice thing that they're bringing to the table here, and I'm looking forward to see how they continue to balance it because we've already seen a few new heroes get integrated and a few get removed, and a few balance changes. So they're definitely on top of it, which is nice, and I hope that continues forward. And I would love to see a way for 8 friends to queue, because that would be kind of a cool thing. Hint, hint, THL based battlegrounds. That would be fun.
They're working on it.
In addition, what you said about the whole client thing, I think that was a very recent adoption, and I would be very surprised if that was planned all along, rather than introduced when Riot announced like Legends of Runeterra, Project A, and like Project S and stuff like that, and the fact that they would all be within the League of Legends client. And I would be very surprised if somebody at Blizzard didn't see that and go, "Hey, that's a very, very."
I think Icon fell into the robot hole.
I'm pretty sure his headphones came unplugged when he started gesticulating wildly. Because he also can't hear us.
That's alright.
Yeah.
Well, we will to keep the train moving here. Let's move on to our third story. This one is pretty straightforward, but it's VK Lion winning GM. So a big story for multiple reasons. Because A, she won it all, which is cool. B, it's for China specifically. I don't think there has been a Chinese player that has finished, at the top in a global event for Hearthstone.
Oh.
And of course,
I think Discord just like died. I don't know. It was weird.
We think your Discord did die.
Yeah.
And of course, not to bury the lead or anything, but huge for women in esports and Hearthstone in particular, for her to come out on top in a very loaded field. So a cool story all around. Great to see the emergence of a player that I was not very familiar with personally going into that weekend. So China's a little bit more isolated in terms of the pro scene. You can watch Gold Series and whatnot, but they're not as well known globally as some of the European players, North American players, etc. So Lotus, did you watch much of the tournament? Did you watch much of the GM season? And just kind of what are your thoughts on VK Lion winning it all?
So I didn't watch too much of the tournament actually. It tends to be just in days and times where I couldn't watch it, versus most streams that I tend to watch are just I tend to watch a lot while at work just to have something going on, and I think it was mostly not at the time I was at work. So the just timing was mostly bad for me. That being said, I didn't know her before. I am very happy though. From what I saw, she played very well. Her deck seemed really interesting, so it just makes sense.
All right. Hat, how much of it did you end up consuming over that weekend?
Well, I was at BlizzCon, so I saw a good amount because it was played at BlizzCon, and it was nice having real competition back at BlizzCon before, because the previous 2 years that I'd been, it was the Invitational and the Global Games, and both were technically competition, but not so much. So it was nice seeing it matter. It was still a little weird because Grandmasters, and it had only been 6 months, and blah, blah, blah. And this was not the World Championship. This was the Global Championship. So I'm surprised they picked a name that was so discriminatory to Liquid Ox's team, but so be it. They did what they did. And watching the event, the closer Lion got to the finals, the more hype the stage got. And Chinese players, like mainland Chinese players, have not historically performed since Tiddler Celestial in Firebat's Worlds, in the first real Worlds. Tiddler Celestial made the finals, and since then, Chinese players have had very poor representation in major Hearthstone elimination events until RNG Leo made the top 4 and VK Lion won the whole thing. And their qualification system, I don't know if people are familiar with it, they have tournament mode in China. There is a tournament mode. It is an add-on to the PC Hearthstone client. There is like a 25,000 player asynchronous tournament that you can play in for placements and then earn points and then earn your way into Masters qualifiers and then earn points and place to earn your way into a 6-slot BlizzCon qualifier. And so the players that made it through, they grinded their faces off. But when they made it, you could see the difference. Grandmasters, if you follow Insam on Twitter, you know that he jokes about it being a streamer league. And the current players in Grandmasters from the major regions have questionable commitment to the game. Bloodyface, I think, is a deserving finalist because he loves Hearthstone and plays a ton of it. But Pheno has been kind of like notably seen playing a lot of TFT and kind of Miss Lethal in the top 4. So like there are just different levels of engagement with the game based on how the Grandmaster structures worked out. Lion earned her way there and then crushed it all the way when she was on stage and was the only player to bring Highlander Hunter, and there were 8 combo priests in the top 8 in the 8 players, and that's a very favorable matchup for Highlander Hunter. So she was the only one that brought it, and it really, really performed well for her. It was hyped to see. She deserved the spot. Her speech was inspiring and emotional and like difficult to watch, but I couldn't tear my eyes away. And she is one of the largest role models in gaming for a demographic segment that typically doesn't have anyone to look up to like that. So I'm really, really glad that she won and took it home, and she absolutely deserved it.
Yeah, I like, as you said, all those are very valid thoughts, and China as a whole kind of happy to get the win on the global stage, and, for the representation, not only for Chinese players, not only for women, but Chinese women as well. So it's, we're definitely seeing the diversity there at GM, but like you mentioned, the Chinese players definitely seem to be on a different level at this point when it comes to the competition tournament mode. I would love to see personally in our version of the client, but hey, it's we got Battlegrounds instead. I guess I should just be happy with what we got and not be too greedy. But Icon, any thoughts on VK Lion?
It's really hype. After like Gaggery, I think, was the last sort of like great role model that like the demographic had within esports, and I don't think with the Overwatch League that didn't really pan out to a great extent. However, Lion winning is super, super, super great, and it's really awesome that like we can take a little bit of a step farther when people are like people say sort of or disparaging towards like the level of competition in that manner. We can point to that and be like, dude, look, this chick just won everything. Like nobody else did that. Like she killed it, And I don't know. I don't really have many more thoughts. I think Kat put it really well. It's a really awesome thing to be able to point to the success that anybody can make it. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter where you're from. It just matters how hard you work. I think Lion did exactly that.
Yeah, a little bit less accessible than it used to be, considering the GM is an actual gated top level. But as far as Masters tournaments and whatnot, yeah, anybody can win. You qualify, you get to play, and you can win. So it's still cool to have that level of competition available for us plebs, so to speak, that don't have the streamer invite or the top level invite to GM. But we take what we can get. So. Moving on to our 4th topic here, and I assure you the Pro Awards are coming, but this one's more THL centric. We're going to talk about the THL Limited Run Series, which has so far included the World Cup in the previous offseason, and now Duos. this is a pretty big thing for THL. I'm enjoying the fact that we have some additional options to get into play here in THL without necessarily finding a team, fitting your PR. It's good to have some options. Who made that logo? Diamond made the logo. It's one of my favorite logos. Thank you, Diamond, for your hard work on the World Cup, and thank you for everybody who participated in that, of course. And Duo seems like it's taken off. Fantastically so far. Even though we haven't even made it through 1 week, there's been a lot of hype in the Discord about it, and that's just awesome. I want to continue to see more limited run series in THL, more ways to get people involved, and more unique formats that will enable people to try Hearthstone and THL out in a way that they might not have otherwise done so. As good as Legacy is, as good as Hero is, it's good to have other choices. So, Lotus, you are the mastermind behind the Duo series, so I'll let you go ahead and take the first crack at that. But, in your experience as far as creating a new series and cultivating it here over the last few weeks, what has been your experience like interacting with the community?
So, first of all, I think the support I got from everyone in planning this has been crazy. Hat helped so much with the system and is still helping. Basically, everyone has been just super welcoming. The general community has also been super receptive. Everyone just comes with questions, with ideas, and things that, oh, you should do it this way. It's just a very engaged community, and it's been a lot of fun to just try running a new event just from a random idea I had a long time ago that I thought, let's try to get it in action, and seems really fun so far.
Yeah, everything that I've heard about it has been positive from just the way it's been run so far, being available for questions, and the general format of it has seemed to be very good. It's nice to get a unique hero series, or a unique last hero standing series, I should say, outside of hero series, because most of our formats that have been limited run have focused on either conquest or some division of that. So it is cool. Hat, you've been involved in this as well. What are your thoughts on the limited run series and the future uh, options we will have for THL here?
Uh, I have been involved in this THL series. I am the commissioner, Donde. I have been
Oh, I
involved.
do know. Oh, I do know.
Um, so this is cool, and we like doing cool things, so we should do more of this. And I haven't thought about it too much more than that. I don't know if this is the sort of thing that could translate into a more perpetual series. And we have a lot of ideas percolating. Also, we all like playing Battleground, so we want to do that, but like win against other people while doing that. But hero engagement has been kind of down a little bit, and I'm hoping that rebounds. But if this is popular and hero is kind of flagging, maybe this is a twist that we could use for more perpetual hero stuff. I don't know. I haven't thought about it, but I was very impressed by the response because we were at 16. We're like, well, just stop it here. We'll never get 32. And Lotus like, okay, why don't we just do Swiss and stop at an even number? It's like, okay. And it's like, okay, we're at 28. You think we can get the last four? It's like, we have until tomorrow. It's like, let's send some posts out. We got the last four. So, and this is 64 people that want to do this thing. If we can get 64 people in a week, that's pretty rad, and we should do things that people want to do.
Yeah, 16 duos popped up almost immediately. I think it was like within 24 hours, right?
Yeah, we closed it within 24. I was not expecting it to be that fast. It was kind of shocking. I do want to thank two players that really helped find other players who wanted to participate, which are Diamond and Lefty. Both of them have been super useful just in reaching out and talking to friends and saying, come play. And yeah, thank you guys if you're here for all the help.
Yeah, anybody who's tuning in, obviously, to this as their first experience in THL, duos and whatnot, welcome to THL, and we're happy to have you. As Icon mentioned, we have, and as Super Murloc mentioned too, we have done other series like this, the THL Open Cup, which was a monthly tournament that we ran all of last year and had persistent points-based standings that led to an end of the season championship. And I think the main difference here, and Icon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, as you pointed out, that was a individual based tournament or series of tournaments, did not really have any of the team culture that we like to cultivate here in THL. the duos, even on like a smaller scale, it lets you pair up with another person. The other series that we have, Pro, Legacy, Hero, that lets you pair up with 4 other people, and it lets you build that camaraderie that we like to have here in THL, not only on the teams, but within the community, within the Discord, etc. And some of the players that joined in never played beyond the Open Cup series, and never, I think really meshed into the THL culture, as you pointed out. So I think moving in this direction, where even with World Cup, where you were playing individually, you were still representing a region, and it still had that kind of overarching tone of a community feel, even though it was like an artificial community that we generated on the fly, where we subdivided everybody into quarters. It was still kind of cool to have that be your team, that you could root for somebody and that you could support another person. So, Icon, I know you touched on that, and if you have any opinions or about the limited run series as a whole, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that I've spoken probably too much in recent weeks about sort of the format that our different series take as a sort of a flowchart, and like how new player retention and stuff works in regards to that. I think that the Open Series didn't specifically do what we wanted because it didn't have that aspect of sort of unity that is shared among all of our other series, which is something that takes a little bit to get used to because it's atypical to Hearthstone competitive formats as a whole. And so I think that now, looking into more formats that incorporate that element of unity in some way, even if it's something as small as just playing with one other person and sort of creating a team name, like a little team identity, something like that, I think is always going to be a much better way, and something that I think we should definitely focus on in the future.
I agree. Community comes first. The creating strong bonds with your teammates or your duo, as the case may have it, even if it's not somebody that you knew very well prior to participating, I think is very important, and we should continue to push that as a positive for THL. That we're here to be competitive, to win, but at the same time we are here to make new relationships and try to make friends, as much as you can in a digital space. So I think it's great for that, and I'd like to see THL continue to build on this. And any last thoughts on this before we move on to our final topic here? I'll take that as a no. All right, so our final story of the night before we get to Pro Awards time, and it's coming, I promise, man. Specialist and HS esports history. This is what we touched on briefly at the very top of this segment, and why I wanted you guys to kind of hold back, because this is important. So Specialist didn't really work, and I think not that it was a terrible idea or format, but it's just it didn't suit Hearthstone and competitive Hearthstone specifically. Something like Magic, where you have like true sideboards, is very different than what Specialists tried to do, and it was definitely a flop. HS Esports history has been dogged by budget cuts, as Hat mentioned, and in general, it's just not been the focus for Blizzard. It's made money. There's been events that are huge. They draw large Twitch numbers, but it kind of was like a community driven thing. Like the community said, hey, we want esports. Like, let's make this an esport. And Blizzard's like, okay, yeah, let's do this. We're not going to really put our heart and soul into it, it feels like, but we'll reap the benefits of it. And the community blossomed. The community wants what they want out of an esport, and Blizzard just has been hesitant to really go all in on that. So, Icon, I'll start with you. You've been very vocal about esports related things. You've been involved in multiple esports, outside of Hearthstone as well. So I feel like you're pretty qualified to talk about, how that compares across the bounds of the various games.
Yeah, don't even get me started on Hearthstone esports, dude. So
I'm getting you started. That is what we're.
Yeah, I know, bro. You're in fine. I think that Hearthstone esports as a whole is extremely mismanaged and lacks vision. I think that Blizzard doesn't know how to properly run an esports scene, and I actually disagree with the idea that the players demanded it. I think that Blizzard saw esports taking off in around more grassroots stuff and more professionally run artificially inflated stuff. such as League of Legends and like more grassroots stuff, such as like Dota and CS. And they said, we want a piece of this. This is where the money is. How can we create this? And they tried to artificially create that. I think that they failed spectacularly and will continue to do so until they get a better bead on how a proper like esports system functions and what is a healthy ecosystem for both players and organizations. I think that an example of Blizzard's sort of philosophy on esports, which is like throw a bunch of money at it, make sure that we are the official sort of organizer and premier like host of all of these events, and then like create professionalism through that. I think is the only the developer that I've seen that do effectively is League of Legends, Riot Games, that is. And I think that Blizzard has tried to be like a scuffed Riot in that respect and has failed incredibly hard. I think that the constant format changes, their miserable Open Cup system before it got reworked. I think their complete lack of support towards like team storylines and independent events and stuff like that has just generally driven the Hearthstone and Blizzard esports scenes into the ground. And I think the only thing keeping it afloat is, as in the case of the Overwatch League, is sort of a bubble of investment money. And I'm very worried for other more naturally grown grassroots esports scenes when the bubble pops and investors don't get the money back that Blizzard promised them because their esport lacks substance. It hasn't sort of grown to the level that it was expected because it's been propped up by sort of false promises.
Sure, and I mean to build on that too, the rabid actual community that the competitive community around Hearthstone is what's kind of keeping it going as well. I mean, you've got tons of people out there who just want to grind cups, who just want to grind these qualifiers, and they'll do that as much as you'll give them, but you need to give them the options. You need to give them paths to the upper echelons that have been kind of blocked off now, and that's just not something that I feel like is really resonating with the community. But we're all kind of invested and we're here, so we still kind of keep with it. Though I don't know. I kind of feel like I missed the boat on esports as a whole. As a mid-30s guy with a kid now, if this was when I was in college, like this is all I'd do is just grind esports all day and get a scholarship for it. And I feel like I really I was born in the wrong time, man. I was born in the wrong time. But Hat, you've got some opinions from earlier on this. We can go back and revisit those, or anything else you want to talk about.
You should go to Lotus first. I'm going to go for a while.
Okay. I appreciate that. Let's go to Lotus first.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll save Hat for the nightcap.
So it won't take too long since Hat wants a bit extra time. I think, to me, specialist format, I played it a bit. I played it in, I did play it in Pro. It just was not fun. It's not the style I like to play. And I feel like Hearthstone is trying esports, but they are not really sure of what they want. So, yeah, there's a vibrant community, and I think at some point we'll reach a more stable state, but it's definitely not there yet.
I agree. I think it was closer before they changed it this past year, and then they changed it again, with GM. But I guess one thing I will say, kudos to them for realizing that Specialist was kind of a flop and moving away from it rather than sunk cost fallacying their way into having it hang around for far, far, far too long. So that being said, I cede my time to Representative Hat, and I will let him take the microphone.
So the best thing Specialist ever did was not exist in this format, because can you imagine what Specialist would look like in Standard right now?
Oh God.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there would be a lot of bunny rolls. So I'm going to reach the same conclusion as Icon, but I want to fundamentally start with a really, really different viewpoint. Is there any profitable part of esports right now?
Yes, I believe if we're going to have this debate, yes, I believe there is influencer marketing and sort of physical retail stores like 100 Thieves are actually making significant profits. Although if you're talking about the traditional esports model, yes, I do agree with you that it's at a financial loss.
So we kind of have people that can sell some jerseys, and that's cool.
Like clothes,
but
and
we're
stuff.
talking,
it's like where the merchandise.
Yeah, right. It's what NFL teams do, except their order of magnitude is way, way higher. Owning a team, losing money right now. being a company that produces esports loses you money. And also, like, after 3 games of football, they don't patch the kickoff distance and suddenly you're 5 yards closer. That's not how that works. It's a game that needs to be played as an esport. You need to have the same rules, not just week after week or month after month, year after year, and that doesn't happen in esports. The game is a service as opposed to being a sport that remains constant. Neither here nor there. But esports is not profitable. League of Legends, which is, or should I say Series of Legends, by far the largest esport and super not profitable, as in like on record in an article in the Washington Post 3 days ago talking about how they get to be profitable eventually. And that's not a good place to be as a business unless you're externally funded by someone that really wants to take some long shot gambles on your business model. And I don't think that there is no future where esports is profitable. I assume that we will eventually get there. We're really not there yet. Right now, the profit is in being in being a person as brand, in being Ninja is where the profit is right now, of being a brand as a single person and not as playing a game, but being seen playing a game. But neither here nor there. There's no money in esports. Blizzard saw this. They jettisoned Heroes of the Storm because it was a giant waste of money. And they cut Hearthstone down to life support to the point where people would still watch it and people would still play in qualifiers and they'd complain, but they wouldn't change their behavior. And anyone that quit playing would be immediately replaced by the next man up, by the next grinder, by the next person. And so Hearthstone esports is functioning as intended right now. And it is awful as a competitive outlet because a competitive outlet needs to exist in name only for a certain audience to keep playing the game, but they're generally still playing. And when a lot of people thought they were out, Battlegrounds brought them right back in because it's not about having a competitive outlet. When Runeterra first came out last month, it had 28,000 Twitch viewers on average when it was visible. By the way, this past week, 4,000. It dropped by 82% because Battlegrounds was there as competition. Legends of Runeterra does not have a tournament scene right now. People play it because it's fun. Battlegrounds does not have a competition right now. People play it because it's fun. Because a game just needs to be fun and addictive and compelling for people to play it. And Magic the Gathering, for example, has a huge competitive structure, way too much competitive stuff, and Arena is like a fraction of the size, and there are a bunch of issues there that I won't go into on the short form podcast. Basically, esports are a money pit, and Blizzard climbed out of it first and caught some flack for it, but it was the right decision because Hearthstone can be competitive, but people don't play it because it's competitive except for a very small niche group of people that Battlegrounds has since captured. I as a business operator, with someone with business and operations experience, I think that they made a very smart decision. Viewing what the system has become, I have nothing but empathy and understanding for how terrible the grinder experience is. But who does the grinder experience doesn't matter as long as somebody is doing it, because the tournament is content and is advertisement for the game. And enough people watch and enough people do it that it serves its purpose. And until that starts happening in large scale, where they don't have enough people to fill a Masters Tour, which they always will because it's 300 people, and people complain about travel costs, but get there anyway. Until it stops being supported at all by the player base, it is serving its purpose.
I agree with you in the sense that in Hearthstone as a microcosm, it's Blizzard is actively pulling out and running a skeleton crew of an esports team. I absolutely agree with you. What would you say to the idea of OWL and CWL being backed by like millions and millions of dollars of franchising money and like Series A investor fundraising, like venture capital money from Blizzard, and Blizzard actively putting as many investments into that as possible? I think that undeniably, just in terms of the financials, they're focusing very hard on fundraising and franchising slots for both OWL and CWL, and I think that runs counter to the sort of idea that they're pulling out of esports as a whole, although I would agree with you on Hearthstone. What would your thoughts be on that?
I mean, that is the one thing that they need to push for visibility and to both buoy the industry and their own product, because Overwatch without esports exists questionably. I don't think that Overwatch is a game without a competitive outlet because it is so inherently competitive. And I don't think they were ready to embrace the sunk cost when OWL was not on the verge of profitability, but on the verge of like cultural relevance. Serena Williams tweeted about whatever team that won that time when they played in Brooklyn. I don't pay a lot of attention to OWL, but I mean, you have to push the envelope in some ways, and they're willing to invest in that. They're making a new Overwatch game that you don't have to buy to play it, because sometimes the right way to run your business is to invest in a product that you know might have a more niche appeal, or might be a more forward-thinking product. And I do think OWL is forward-thinking, but the company as a whole is they jettisoned HGC, and they cut Hearthstone down by like 80% of the spending. So they can divert some of that money back into OWL, because OWL has engagement, but it's probably still not profitable. And if it remains unprofitable for another couple of years, I don't know if we'll still see it.
And see, I don't think that that's worth much, because I think both OWL and CWL are a massive scam and are going to cause an investment bubble to burst within the scene. I think very soon, because it's completely unprofitable, as you say. And I think that if you're going to be investing into the esports scene, there are very few, there are profitable options that exist, and I think that money should go towards that rather than these very sort of glamorous options that will yield massive lack of returns on franchising slots.
And just to jump in here too, as you guys are mentioning, Overwatch League does have, it was on the, I guess still technically could be on the verge of marketable, actual actionable appeal. If you go into places like Buffalo Wild Wings, they have all the TVs with all the sports up there. They actually have TVs that show Overwatch League. Like, if you go in, they just have the streams on, which I think is kind of a cool thing, that it's like culturally a relevant piece of our society, that you can go in and be like, all right, I actually just want to go and hang out with my friends and watch esports. I don't want to do that at home. I can actually go to a restaurant and watch esports. And I know that's more of a thing overseas, like a lot of Asian countries, it's much more socially accepted. But in the U.S., it's just kind of catching on. It would be kind of cool to see if it does manage to actually become profitable and get more companies involved. But I'm obviously skeptical, as you are. So, any last thoughts on that? No way we'll go past 10:15. Yeah, man. If we've got good conversation, I don't care. Like, I'm happy to discuss things for longer. I just don't want people to feel bored. But hey, if they're not bored, then that's what's important. So,
It's if they're not bored, then they don't get a vote.
ooh,
It's a double entendre. There's two entendre.
Ooh.
Too much entendre. So, we are going to wrap up the evening with Pro Awards. You've been so patient, everybody who's not named Diamond. But Diamond, we're here for you, buddy. So we're going to give you guys the awards. We know you're looking. I want to go to P&B so badly. Yeah, there's nothing cool up in Maine. We just don't have, like, cool, video games. Actually, we have one video game bar, and it's all right. It's just small. But yeah, let's talk about Pro Series. So we are going to see a shift at HearthCenter next season. We're going to be moving away from talking about Legacy and Hero quite a bit, and leave that to their respective shows, and focus more on Pro. That being said, we are still going to talk about a deeper topics, such as what we just talked about for the last hour or so. Maybe not that many on a single given week, but we want to give Pro its due. I feel like Pro is really growing, and it needs its own show to really focus on it. So let's hear it for Pro. It was a good season, other than the fact that Icon's team won. And
firm agree.
Yeah, we have our own emote now, in case you haven't seen. It's pretty great.
It's true. And we will be updating Twitch with the Jetlaw emote shortly. Ran out of time before we started, but let's do the awards. Let's go into some awards. So our first award is Comeback Player, which, as we know, the criteria for that is the improvement season over season of a single player. And our winner for Comeback Player of the season is Myanodon. He went from 2-5 to 5-3, and the runner-up is Boozosaurus, who went from 2-5 to 4-4. Both players, I believe, on the same team, if I'm not mistaken. Both on the unknown.
Nope. They were both on Dr. Boom Shakalaka.
Dr. Boom Shakalaka. Yes, sorry.
Shakalaka was very, very bad last season and did pretty decent this season. They definitely did okay for themselves. So
They sure did. And my end on, a friend of the show, he's been on here, and we'll see him on Tavern Talk tomorrow night. But yeah, big season for him. Booze started rough, but finished strong and finished with a 500 record. So congrats to both of them on their success in pro, which is as you might imagine, a very competitive scene and tough to get a lot of wins. Any thoughts on this, guys, before we move on to the next award?
mine is awesome and Booze is awesome. I'm happy.
All right. So our next award is Best Captain. The best captain will be the captain who had the best record in the regular season with the fewest amount of DQs. So in this case, 0 is the fewest amount of DQs, which, it's a good amount. You don't want to have DQs as a captain. It means you're motivating your players, and then you end up with a good record, and that shows that you have a good, solid command over your team. So our winner this season was Ducharmo of the Unknown, 0 DQs, 6-1 record for the Unknown in the regular season. And runner-up is Darkside, who did have 0 DQs, same amount of DQs that he had personally had wins, and his team though 5-2. So Hat, congratulations to your team for being the runner-up here. In Darkside in particular. Anything you want to say on behalf of Darkside?
I just want to point out that if there was an award for best 4-person team, Darkside wins, and it's not even close. Not even a little close. Best 4-person team in all of Pro Series.
So you
Our
little
team if you will show up and not speak for 2 weeks and then win 4-0 in those 2 weeks, but fair.
I mean,
very true.
Wouldn't that be the exact opposite of the THL spirit, though?
I mean, I think Darkside would want it this way.
I think he would too. Just having his name up in lights, I think, makes him happy. Either way.
And on that last week, he got to go from being a Doomsayer to being a Guru Bashi offering, and that's a very special thing to do.
It sure is. So Ducharmo put together a new team in the Unknown and was very successful in his first season. He didn't play; he was a captain only and not a player. And sometimes that works out. Icon, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Sometimes removing yourself from play is one of the best things that you can do as a captain. I will tell that to anybody who will listen.
Well, speaking of new teams, our next award is Best New Team. And that will, I guess, come as no surprise that is also the Unknown. And the runner-up is for the boys. So the criteria here is 3 players on the team who did not play with each other before in any series. The Unknown being a brand new team, and all the players, as far as we could tell, were fairly new to the relationship. And for the boys, same goes for them. So congratulations to those 2 teams. Lotus, any thoughts on the Unknown's inaugural season?
I think they had a great season. I was actually in their Discord, although even if I didn't talk too much, but they seem to be really working well together. It seems to be one of those teams that just shows the power of teamwork, just because they were talking so much and just planning so much.
I want to point out as well that Propane Gang did not qualify for this award because Darkside, Top Hat Demon, and Kungmar played together in Legacy Season 5, which started in late November 2016. So we take research into new teams very seriously.
We do. We absolutely do.
Yeah. I'm never going to win this award because all my pro teams are just 3 to 4 of the same people reshuffled around. So.
And there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, you've got a team, you like the core, you're consistent, but that doesn't mean you qualify as new team. And there are some awards that you just can't qualify for. In some cases, you can't qualify for them more than once. For example, Rookie of the Season. You get one shot at it, and if you don't get it, you don't get it, and you don't get to take a second try. So our Rookie of the Season this season was Brushy Tuna. 6-1, 13-4 with a weighted game winning percentage of 74.51%. And Ron Mexico is our runner-up at 5-1, 10-5 game score with a weighted game win of 66.27%. So congratulations to the 2 of them. They were the 2 best rookies in Pro, best pickups for their respective teams as well, only dropping one game in the regular season. Again, just to reiterate, these are regular season awards. They do not take into account the playoffs. Hat, you are the architect of the weighted game win score. So, what are your thoughts? There's a pretty big gap here between Brushy and Ron.
So I think my favorite part of this statistic is that Brushy is currently a 5 seed in Legacy.
Yeah.
And is crushing in Pro, which goes to show you that PR isn't everything. But yes, I did create the weighted game win percentage metric by taking one metric and then adding a little bit of another metric, and now I'm a chef.
A Sousson.
Brushy played against good players and won a lot of games in a series that they had no experience in that was counter to their typical seeding and placement in other PR-based series. And really, I think, proved that it's not just about being an underdog. It's all about context is everything. And also goes to show how good the unknown was, where a new captain and a new team and multiple rookies, including both of these players in the 1 and 2, that's pretty special. That's a pretty special thing. And I think Ducharme should be very proud of his performance, and these players should be very proud as well of the level of skill they showed in this context.
Without a doubt. I mean, you can sit there and say, of course, the ultimate prize is not personal accolades, but it is to win a championship. And that doesn't diminish the accomplishments of the team itself. The unknown was very strong throughout the season. Anything can happen in Hearthstone, and it does not speak to them in a negative fashion that they got knocked out of the playoffs before reaching the finals. So congratulations to them, and congratulations to our MVP. Is our final award that we'll be giving out tonight. The MVP of the Pro Series is none other than Brushy Tuna as well. Same stats here. And Fuel's the runner-up at 6-1, 12-4, so just one game behind, with a weighted game win of 71.58%. So these two were very dominant all season. Fuel is no stranger to the awards, show. He's got his share of hardware. So Brushy, best rookie, best player, just straight up the best in Pro in his first season. So, it's very impressive. Like you said, Ducharme should be proud of what his team accomplished. Any last? We talked about Brushy. Anybody want to talk about Fuel a little bit?
I mean, yeah, dude, Fuel is insane. Fuel managed to do everything that he did while selling a house and being extremely sort of busy in real life. And I am very, very, very lucky to have had him as a player. And he succeeded against nearly all of his opponents. And I will always thank him for the crazy performance that he put up. Did really well. Brushy Tuna is obviously an incredible success story, and Ducharme and Brushy should both be very proud. I mean, they had a really great season. And if you were to run this sort of pro simulation a couple more times, I wouldn't be surprised if the unknown won a few times. They were an amazing team and definitely could have won it all.
I also just looked up who Brushy Tuna's regular season opponents were. Pond, Donde, 2-Star Mako, Fuel, C-Mac, Skittles, and Eggo Waffle. That's a rogues gallery of opponents right there.
Did you happen to see who his loss was on the season?
I feel like you already know. Does their name rhyme with Bonde?
It might.
Is it you? Is it you, Donde?
It was me.
I mean,
I gotta
you're
have the
his
confidence
most
somewhere.
valuable loss.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I was half of his losses.
That's good for you, buddy.
Thank you. That's all I want. It's just a little pat on the back, That whisper. That might have been a movie reference that is not going to be caught by Diamond or Icon.
Yep. Nope.
Or me.
Liar, liar, nobody? Ugh.
And I was speeding. What a classic! What a
I
classic
think the
film.
oldest movie that I've ever watched is Heathers, and that's like the one about that creepy kid who
I'm pretty sure Liar Liar came out in 1999.
Yeah, I think it was something like
90s.
97, even better.
Wasn't
Let's
him.
keep going, Donde, before we and in a more depressed state than we started.
I object. On what grounds? It's damaging to my case. I mean, that's all the awards we had. We got nothing else. So that's everything. That's literally HearthCenter in a season summed up. I had fun this season. I don't know about you guys. Looking forward to taking into consideration feedback that anybody has. We will be putting out the content survey once more. So anybody who would like to fill that out for anything that you liked on HearthCenter or thought that could be improved, you're welcome to do so. I take all the feedback into consideration, and I would love to have a conversation with anybody who has an opinion that wants to go beyond the form and just talk about it. That goes for Saloon, that goes for Tavern Talk, or any of our streams in their entirety. I just want to know what you think. So please do not be shy about telling me. I know most of you are not anyway, so that's not a worry. But this is always fun for me. It's fun. We're not doing Pro All Stars yet. That's going to be Desharmo's thing to announce. So I'm going to let him handle that, because we were still debating on the exact format of it, and I didn't want to jump the gun. So we will have that in a separate post/blog content, perhaps. Blog content? Anybody? Some blog content?
Do we do that here?
We
Is that
do
a thing
that
we
here.
do?
That was one thing that I was going to bring up, but I'll bring that up in Discord. We've held everybody long enough tonight. There will be a draft component time, and that will be included in the Pro All Stars, so you have nothing to fear there. It's more the how it'll be played format that we're talking about. I wrote a blog once upon a time. I wrote some blog articles, and that hasn't happened in like 6 months, so we'll see what happens. But thank you all for joining me tonight. Hat, Icon, Lotus Knight, as always. Great to talk with you folks, and I hope to have you on again, Hat, if you would be available. It's submit your classes. Yes, especially if you're in the finals. I haven't submitted my classes yet. That's what I'll be doing after I hop off here. But thank you guys for being fun to talk to week in and week out. The reason we do the show is for the conversation and the relationships and what we can bring to THL as a whole. So I am greatly appreciative that we have this chance to do this at least for an hour and a half every week. Looking forward to doing it again 2020 and beyond. And for those who are still alive in the playoffs or playing duos or playing Challenger, good luck this week as always. Thumbs up from Hat, thumbs up from me. Anything anybody wants to say before we head out for the evening?
I don't think I got to say this on the last stream, but I'm very, very, very lucky to have my teammates, and it's Pro Series is wonderful, and it's a joy to be able to play with your friends as well as your teammates. So that's all.
Very much, and that's the nice thing about THL. The friendships don't necessarily end after the season, even if you do opt to play with some new players. There's always new friendships to learn, and to just to interact with new people every season is fun for me, and I hope to continue to expand my personal friend sphere within THL. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us here. Lotus, thank you again for being here. Hat, thank you again. Icon, you as well. We will see you around the Discord, and we will be back next year, hopefully better than ever. Hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for tuning in, and as always, don't forget to subscribe, because it is free if you have Twitch Prime, and we do love that. Going to continue to bring you more prize pools, more giveaways, things like that. This helps directly. Please don't forget. Thank you. Good night, and good luck.
See y'all.